Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pingree's Heart to Heart series, where we go around Pingree Center for Autism Learning and talk to some of the different people who either work at the program or who have children who receive services at the program. We appreciate you for tuning in today. We will be talking with Pingree's LPN, Danielle Watson. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course.
An LPN, I just help me with that really quick. There's a lot of different things that a person in nursing can be categorized as.
It's a licensed practical nurse.
Are you like the old school nurse, like back in
I
the old days?
function here kind of like a school nurse, yes,
Mhm.
but Valley's it's just kind of a different position. So I do function as a school nurse, but we are a treatment center. So I also function as a nurse in that capacity as well. So yeah, big picture, I kind of just look like a school nurse.
But with so much more going on.
Yeah, you have like the autism component and the
Mhm.
behavioral component and yeah, the mental health component. So there's a lot of pieces that come in. So it's a little more than a school nurse, but we have lots of kids with lots of boo-boos and we're not a school, but we like to kind of model what a school looks like. And so the kids refer to me as a school nurse, even though, I'm a behavioral health nurse.
And it's a lot more than just band-aids and tummy aches when
It
you're
is.
working
Yeah.
in the field we're working in. I ask this question for everybody who comes on who works with people with autism. And the reason why I ask this question, even though for people who've been listening for a long time, it might seem really repetitive, but we get new people listening all the time. People tune in all
Mhm.
the time who have maybe never actually heard anything more about autism than their cousin who is on the spectrum. So, what is autism?
It's an umbrella of different symptoms that somebody might have. And so we really function under that umbrella when you're talking about autism spectrum disorder, because it is like a huge, broad spectrum of different things people may have. So with autism, you might have some intellectual disabilities. A lot of it is communication problems. A lot of it is repetitive behaviors, rigidity, so many things that can fall under that spectrum. And some kids have a lot of those things. Some kids just have a few, and some are more impacted than others by those things. But, it's every single kid, every single person is drastically different who do
Right.
have autism. It's a unique position because you're treating them. Every child is so different. Their care plans are so different. What we do for each child is so different because they're all unique individuals, just like everybody else.
I love the saying, if you've met one person with autism, you've met that person with autism.
Yeah, yeah. Before coming here, I knew people who had autism, particularly children, one or two, not many. So I thought I knew what I was coming into. And I think anybody that comes to Pingree who haven't been in the field are a little bit shocked by like what they see. It's so different, it's so vast. The kids are so unique, the behaviors are so unique. You are a little bit shocked if you haven't been around it a
Yeah.
lot, just by all the different things you might see.
How long have you been at the Pingree Center?
9 years almost.
Prior to that, were you practicing anywhere else or did you just come straight into Pingree?
I have a unique story. I was in the Army, and so that's where I got my nursing degree from, was the military. And I didn't do anything crazy. It was all women's and children's health when I was in the Army. And so when I got out, I worked in women's health again. So lots of women's surgeries, things like that. My daughter got very, very sick. She had cancer and then needed a
Oh,
liver
goodness.
transplant. So I was home with her for quite a few years taking care of her. And it was a pretty turbulent time, like in and out of the hospital. So I had a lot of stress going back to a hospital setting. And so when I found Pingree with healthy, active, vibrant children, I mean, what luck, to find this after kind of that trauma and being able to work with children who are overall just healthy and wild and fun.
And what luck for Pingree too, that we get somebody who's so adaptable to anything that can come your way. If you've been practicing nursing for that long and
Yeah.
it's something as potentially chaotic as in the Army, you're
Yeah.
you're kind of ideally suited to come into something that you never know what's going to happen every day.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't get shocked too easy though. So not much rattles me, which is good. Not much kind of sets me off kilter, you should say.
Right.
So it's pretty good. It's been nice. But the staff here is what makes it nice. It's
Mhm.
just the support you get from everybody around you and the knowledge of people around you. I learn something every single day.
Yeah, I got to meet with Sarah and Jared yesterday, and just sitting in a conference room with them talking and going, okay, these folks are really, really invested. They definitely believe in the mission, and what a great thing for these kids, right? To have.
Yeah, she's a needle in a haystack. She really is. She's amazing. And I've learned most, I think, from her and Heather Davis, just
Mhm.
kind of them being in the positions that they're in and just kind of standing back and watching what they do. The past 2 years, kind of a year prior to COVID, I would just really pay attention to how they handle behaviors and how they handle kids and just kind of watching. And you don't realize how much you're learning until kind of later when you're faced with something, just mimicking what they do and just asking them tons of questions because they are both a plethora of knowledge.
With the Pingree Center, how many students are we providing services for?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I'd say 110.
Wow. Okay.
We can see if I'm right. You can check me on
Okay.
that. I'm curious. I'd say about
We'll
110. That's my guess. I'm sticking to it.
we'll definitely check on that one. So with potentially 100 some odd students, and with autism being incredibly unique on a case by case basis, you are faced with some very, very interesting situations, especially if somebody's nonverbal. How does a nonverbal person with autism communicate that maybe their finger hurts or that they've got a stomach ache or a headache or something along those lines? How do you keep up with that?
It's hard. One of the things I really depend on staff knowing their kids and knowing what they do. And our staff is so good at it. They're tired. They're never sleepy at school. They don't do this. They tripped. They hurt themselves. They weren't crying, but now they're really quiet. So I really depend a lot on the staff. We also do a lot of visuals where they can kind of point to how they feel. We have a lot of visuals where they could of a body and what hurts, things like that. Depending on parents, a lot of communication with parents and talking to them. So if I have a child who I might think is sick or I'm not sure, just being able to communicate with families is really helpful and seeing is this out of the norm for them? They've had this bad cough. What do you think? Communicating with parents with our autism specialist is really where I get most of my information, especially on the kids who are nonverbal and are able to communicate that. And obviously, I fall back to nursing too, making sure I'm doing that assessment first.
Considering the challenges that can come your way and considering the population of people that we're working with here at Pingree, from an outsider's point of view, what do you think? And I ask this question every time anybody comes on and talks with us. What do you think somebody who's not familiar with what you do would find most surprising about what you do?
I think because we look like a school, we're not a school. Because we look like a school, I think a lot of people assume we can't talk about medication management. Mm-hmm. We can't bring that up. It's taboo. And you just don't bring it up because you don't push medication on family. You don't suggest medications to family. You don't talk about medications. And I think even another nurse, say a school nurse would kind of look at what I do. I do talk about medication because I see these behaviors. I see the data. I look at the data. And when we see children kind of are at a standstill and they're not improving despite a really good behavior plan, I do talk to parents about medication. And I approach it a little bit differently than I think some people might. I really approach it in kind of the education standpoint, talking to parents, getting them set up with an appointment with either one of our practitioners or with an outside practitioner just to get information on what management looks like. Right. Because there's a very good percentage of our clients who are going to end up with medications at some point. So I want families to be prepared, have enough information before they make that decision. Because once they're in crisis mode, they don't know who to call. They haven't established care with a provider. They don't know what the next step is. So I really try to get that conversation going a little bit before they might need medication. It's a little bit different than you might see in a public school setting.
Yeah, I went through exactly that with some clients of mine back in the 90s where, we're not talking about medication. We're not talking about medication. Yeah. And then you end up pinned against the wall with a piano and you're going, okay, I think we need to talk about medication.
It's a hard conversation. And with really good support from both Sarah and Heather, if you have that backing, it's a lot easier to talk about it, especially with the parents who are resistant. Just pushing education, just giving them the tools they need to make an informed decision, because ultimately it is their decision, but I want them to make an informed decision and be able to access what they need right away when they need it.
What do you love most about the work that you're doing?
Jeez. I feel like we make a difference. I feel like what we do is going to carry on in these kids' lives for ever for as long as they live. And so to be part of the team, I do the medication management, I do the injuries, I manage the day-to-day medications, but the staff here is the one who are really making that strong impact. So even if I could be a tiny part of that and say, oh, I was there when this happened, like, it feels good to know that we can make an impact in their lives and give them a more productive life with good quality in it.
I think we're uniquely positioned in our field of work where you can end almost any day and say, I made a difference in some way.
Yeah, that's why I love it here. You just know that you're doing something good. Even on the worst days, you're doing something good. You come in, you don't want to be at work, you're really tired, you didn't sleep. But the second you walk in the door, you see little people running and they want to hug, or they're just hilarious. They're so funny and
Yeah.
so clever and so just clever and funny, some of them. And it just makes your day. And you can't have a bad day here. You can't. And, some of our teachers are, and even myself, we have had days where we've had lots of aggressions against us. And,
Sure.
your hair's a mess and we've been beat up a little bit. But if you have that day for X amount of days, and then you look back and you say, whoa, look at where we are now. And look at where we were then. And I just look at the teaching stuff. I'm like, wow, you did this. Like, they did this. We have a few staff where I'm like, oh my, you did this. Like, this is all you. Like, this is what you did. It's pretty cool to watch.
That is pretty amazing. You've been with Pingree now for 9 years, and you've had a pretty extensive history in the nursing field. What's next for you? What does the future look like for Danielle Watson?
Probably all things Pingree and AAC. I'm at the AAC now too. So I go back and forth. The majority of my time is spent at Pingree because our clients at the AAC are limited right now. We don't have a lot. We are getting more and more, but most of my time's here. Eventually it's going to be pretty even, half and half. So it's pretty exciting to have the older clients as well, and gotten a few really neat ones where you could just kind of have conversations with them and see what they think, and moving into adulthood is kind of cool too.
Well, and some of those folks you've been working with since they were teenagers, young teenagers.
Yeah, a couple of them since they were, barely entering puberty, and now they're full-fledged adults.
That is such a neat center too. It's got to be a lot of fun to be able to see that,
It is.
we've built this center where you can actually have a future past the age of 22, and I love that.
Yeah, and just the different stuff we could do there, and talk about going to the doctor, and sex education is a big one that's needed in our community. No, we're still learning. It's a learning curve for everybody. It's needed, maturation, puberty.
Absolutely.
It happens to all our kids.
Well, Danielle, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, and I appreciate everything you bring to Pingree and to the Adult Autism Center, since now we know that you're at both programs. But thank you so much for all of your time and your contributions.
All right. Thanks, Lee.